I'm sorry. I went to go blow my nose. Oh no, art song! I'm so sorry. I forgot about the art song. It's been a while since I did a coloring stream. Maybe not. Maybe it hasn't been that long. I went to go blow my nose, and then I came back, and then I realized I think I forgot to plug in the tablet. So I was like trying to trace wires and plug in the tablet. And then I realized, oh, the song's probably almost over. I don't want to leave people hanging. And then I ran away. Let me go plug in the tablet. Maybe I'll also play the art song while we're waiting. Sorry to be so unprofessional, Bubble.
First you take the pink, and then some blue, and then the green, and then more pink, and then a dash of blue. Coloring, coloring, coloring. There's another color. Do, do, do. Look, I drew us. Bus driver, are we there yet?
Okay. I'm back. I think everything's good to go now. Let's see. I was trying to turn on the tablet and I would come up with the logo and then nothing would happen. And it was because like the USB cords were plugged in but not the HDMI cord. Okay. Whew. I feel kind of exhausted right now. Cuddle just went on a Discord call to talk about some kind of serious stuff, and now I'm ready to be silly. Pretty sure it's because Bubbles acts younger than the others, so I forget how maybe that's me. I'm Bubbles. La 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 la. First you take the pink, and then the blue, and then the green, and that's the pink, and that's the blue, or something like that. Coloring, coloring, coloring. Get another color. Do, do, do. Look, I drew us. Bus driver, are we there yet? Okay, let me change my screen and get display capture. Thank you. Let me stretch this. Let me. What? How do I get this? And whoops, not that. That. Maybe not that much. That. I took my webcam down a little bit. And then, where's my tablet? Where's my tablet? There it is! Wow! Coloring, coloring, coloring. Let me play the music again. Oh yes, I never told you what I'm coloring. I'm coloring art fight attacks. This is our friend's murder drones, OC. And so I got 5 attacks, but I only want to stream for maybe a couple hours. So I think I will do this one, and then I'll do some like simpler ones that I got. I'll see how much I can do in a couple hours. I think most of this coloring is gonna have to be off stream, but I wanted to at least do some of it on stream. Wait, who's shooting me? Who's shooting me? Ah! The spike injector? Oh, you mean her tails? Yeah. I think I'm gonna like flip a lot of this too. Just because it's like faster and easier and ends up looking better. That's why I only drew one wing. So I thought I could just flip it. Yeah, it's coming from the butt. Maybe I'll actually color the tails first. My tablet keeps reverting to making the pressure hard. I like the softest pressure ever. Yeah. Oh, I love soft pressure. The voice sounded like it went. Why does it do that? Does it sound really funny to anyone else, or am I just goofy? Or both? I think I don't like how these wires look up here. So I think I might redraw those. Smiles are the latest trend. Maybe I'll color the thingies at the end, and then I'll move them, and then redraw the wires. Listen. I played the rest of it. She wasn't saying shit. She's sharing something. La 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 la. Coloring, coloring, coloring. Get another color. Dee, dee, dee. kind of thinking of listening to System Speak. I think last time I did a coloring stream, I listened to System Speak, and at the time, they were like doing something with their website where I couldn't access them in chronological order anymore, and I was like, no. So I just played some ones that looked good, and that was okay. But now the chronological order is back, so now we can listen to them in the way we used to be listening to them. I like doing it that way. Then I get to see like their progression as a system, and I get more context for some things they talk about. Maybe I'd do that. Wait, let me fix the crack. I'm gonna go to like a point here. Oh yeah, One Piece would be so long. Hi April! Ship ship! Yeah! Whoa! 1,000! I guess if anyone has like something they want to share that's like that long, you could do like maybe watch party of like your favorite episodes. Just pick like 8 of them or something. But there's also so many suggestions in there already. Oh wow. That's a meaty show then. I didn't expect this to be that thick. Yeah, I never really got why some people really hate filler episodes in general. Because it like gives more character. Hey, that's still the room. I forgot that I was starting to find System Speak. Starting to get that up, and then I got distracted. What her wings? Yeah, her wings. Her tails would be behind her wings, I guess. It depends on the filler, since some of it is random shit for no reason, and others have characterization, but filler can also cause plot holes. Ah. There, I'm looking at System Speak. don't think... wait. I don't think I've played this one, Mentalizing. I think that's the one that we're on. So, sorry if we've already played it. It's been a while since I've been able to listen to them in order. Straw Hats fell into a Navy base and had to sneak around trying to escape. The time they lost all their memories, except for one of them, and interactions between character versions of them. Amnesia episodes can always be fun. Do I need to turn up system
Okay,
speak?
everybody, guess
Or is
what?
this good?
It's officially been 6 months since we started podcasting, and we have almost 70 episodes. One is lost. We'll share it if we find it.
Oh no.
And this is number 69. So,
Lost
hello.
media.
This is exciting.
Hello.
And so one thing that we need is to renew our website and all the podcasting software. So if you want to go to systemspeak.org and click on the donate button and help us support our podcast and to be able to continue podcasting, that would be great. We do want to appreciate and send a shout out to an anonymous donor who was able to get us a new microphone, which is super great, because we were having issues with background noise and other things that were interfering. So I can't promise that we won't ever have background noise, because a few of us really like to record outside.
John,
with a new microphone, even that should be better. So hopefully that will help and work, and we continue to be grateful for your support. Using the donate button, you can also be an ongoing supporter automatically without having to go back to the website to fill it out again. So check that out. You can see it on the homepage at systemspeak.org or the podcast page, which is systemspeak.org/podcast, where all the episodes are listed and described, including trigger warnings for each episode. Thank you for your support. Now, speaking of support, here is what we have to talk about. This ginormous therapy workbook that is a nightmare. It's so hard. I don't even know what to say. So last week, we were learning all about avoidance. And when we learned about avoidance, all we learned is that we're really good at doing it. Like, it turns out we have some pretty mad avoidance skills. Like, we are good at the avoidance department. It's showing up like things we don't want to do, things that we don't want to feel, things that we don't want to say, things that we don't want to be aware of. It's showing up in every relationship. It's showing up with friends and with a therapist and with a husband and with the children, and things that we have to do or things that we need to do, all kinds of, I can't even tell you, it's showing up everywhere. But obviously, the area we're focusing on is the therapy stuff, except what we've learned is the therapy stuff actually influences everything. So the better we get at avoiding things that are therapeutic and difficult and painful, the more like automatic those things become. So there are some things that we didn't even realize we were doing, but now that we're becoming more aware that we're doing it, we see we do it all the time. It's totally embarrassing and really difficult to kind of stop. But the workbook says we don't have to stop it so much as notice and be aware of it. And so the workbook for last week was actually taking avoidance to explain it again by kind of doing the opposite. And so in this workbook we're doing for group called Coping with Trauma-Related Dissociation, it says that the opposite of avoidance is mentalizing. So this is different than maladaptive, because maladaptive is when you use coping skills that help you survive, like dissociation, but that are not actually effective once you are safe or grown or in a good place. Mentalizing is like the positive version of this, of good coping skills that help you be present or have presence meaning being aware of who you
Presents!
are and what you're there
Oh.
to do and what your function is and how you're feeling and thinking. And so we're going to talk about that today. Mentalizing. So mentalizing is the empathetic capacity to reflect on our own inner experience, motivations, intentions, and is essential for overcoming phobia of inner experience. The phobia of inner experience is like the whole avoidance thing about being afraid to learn about the system, being afraid to listen to others inside, being afraid to respond to others inside, being afraid of what others inside do or say or think or feel or remember. But being empathetic to ourselves and even empathetic to them, which also helps us be empathetic to ourselves, helps us understand our own reactions rather than just being in the middle of them. So when we start to understand like what's happening to us and why we're feeling things that we don't understand, or why we're experiencing things that we don't understand, then that's really scary. And it can be kind of terrifying, right? Like flashbacks or nightmares or other kinds of intrusions. But the more that we face them, I don't mean triggering yourself on purpose. Like that can be a thing that is just a setup and makes things too hard too fast. I don't mean that. I mean, the more that you face what you are experiencing, and by just noticing it and being aware of it and acknowledging it, then the less scary it becomes. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But so it's saying that we will understand ourselves and each other better when we are just aware of it rather than trying to get away from it. Mentalizing also teaches us a difference between the automatic responses like dissociation when something is hard or scary, or running away, or the fight and flight responses and all of that. Mentalizing helps us, instead of doing those things, mentalizing helps us choose our own responses. So rather than it being like an impulsive response or an automatic response that we don't even really have a say in, like this is happening to us, it sort of empowers us to actually consciously think about what's happening, think about what we need in the moment, and consider how we want to respond and what our choices of responses are, and actually choose that. So, like, this is actually something we do with the kids. Like, if you imagine a stop sign, in America, it's the red and the white letters across that say stop. So think like the S stands for stop, the T stands for think about, the O stands for your options,
I don't
and
remember
P
this
stands
from
for
therapy.
plan. So instead of just acting out, or instead of just reacting, or instead of doing what you've always done but isn't actually helping you, stop and think about what your options are, how you want to respond, and make a plan to choose how you want to respond differently and how you want to deal with it. It may be that you don't want to deal with it right now. It may be that you want to deal with it later in therapy. It may be that you want to deal with it not at all, or tomorrow, or after something else is already wrapped up, or maybe put it next on the list but not today. That kind of thing. That's okay, because even if you're still avoiding it in those ways, maybe that's containment, or maybe that's pacing, or maybe that is even really avoidance, but you're actually consciously choosing, I cannot deal with this right now. So for example, if something big is happening that we're remembering or having body memories or something, but it's time to parent, then we've got to find a way to use coping skills and grounding skills and everything we've learned in the last year in therapy to deal with that, instead of just falling apart only when it's time for us to be a parent, or time to work, or time to whatever. So it kind of empowers us in the present rather than abusers in the past still having control over our lives in the present moment, or feeling like we're caught in this swirl of chaos and confusion that comes with kind of the fog of dissociation, and having a choice and a say in how we respond with it or how we deal with it. This same skill, this mentalizing skill, the same thing is what helps us understand others more accurately. It helps us feel more secure and more connected, and helps us make sense of our own minds and as well as the intentions of others. So for example, the better we get at mentalizing, the better we understand that the therapist has always been there for us, has always responded, has always kept her appointments, has always communicated any time off, and has always stayed present with us through hard things, and has always told us that we can come back next week. So the more we're mentalizing, the more aware of that we are, and we can judge her thoughts and intentions. I don't mean mind reading, but we can judge but we can understand that she really means it, and that she's authentic, and that her behavior is congruent to what she says. That's different than when we first started and we couldn't do any of this mentalizing, and so we were afraid that we would say the wrong thing, or she would fire us, or she wouldn't let us come back, or that she wasn't real. It helps even with the derealization in that way, or depersonalization of now time is safe. We're actually in her office. Her office is safe. She is safe. We can talk to her. No matter what we say, we can still see her again next week. It helps put things in context and kind of solidifies now time so that we're not afraid or filtering what's happening now through the memories of the past, when other people did not stay, or when other people did hurt us, or when other people did leave us. Mentalizing helps us not apply those experiences to the therapist in the present who has never done any of those things. Does that make sense? So it helps us to know that it's okay we're having the feelings that we're having, but we're also able to remember that now time is safe, and it helps us use our coping skills or our grounding skills so that our responses are reflective and we have the power to choose them ourselves, rather than it just triggering an automatic response that we don't even really get a say in, and is kind of happening to us before we're even aware that it's happening. This puts us back on the offense, like we can be proactive about things rather than only reactive, or having to deal with the swirl of symptoms that comes with not having any choice, or not having any power, or not knowing what's going on. Mentalizing helps us know what's going on and how we want to choose to respond to it. But it takes practice. And what we practice is reflection. It's being in the present. That means we have to be in the present, because we can't reflect on what we're not aware of, and we can't be aware of what we're still avoiding. Does that make sense? So I don't mean like I'm in the kitchen and my child drops a dish and I hear the crash of broken glass, and so then I have a flashback, like that triggers something, right? So that's still going to happen as we go through therapy, because these kinds of things are just part of what is difficult about DID and hard and scary about DID. But at the same time, we have grounding skills and coping skills that as we use them and practice them more and more, we can still say, now time is safe, but also I'm having this flashback right now. And this flashback feels super scary, and what happened before was really awful, but also I'm okay right now. Now time is safe right now. I'm in my house, I'm an adult, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I have children, I have a therapist, I can text her, I have friends, I could call them. All of the things, pop a peppermint in my mouth, like whatever it takes to stay in the present, and now time is safe. Now, that doesn't mean we have to ignore sort of that undercurrent of what we experience in a flashback. I can journal about it. We could talk about it again in therapy. But what it's saying is that the more we're aware of what's going on, the more we can actually deal with it in ways that feel safe and helpful, even though it's still unpleasant. So dealing with a memory, even in therapy, is not fun. It's not like, oh, this is a good time, let's go talk about this trauma. It's not fun, but we can contain it a little bit until we get to therapy. We can pace it so that we're not dealing with it before whoever's involved with that memory is ready. We can make sure that all of those who are involved in that memory first know that now time is safe before we talk about things from memory time. That way, memory time doesn't feel like now time as much, and we can stay more in the present. But it takes practice, and it's like building any other muscles. And so being in the present is the first part of reflective skills. And I know that's hard. Like, I'm not trying to make this super simple, because I know it's a lot harder to actually do, like easier said than done, right? We have worked for a whole year just on now time is safe. And so I know that it's hard, and I know that it's complicated in trying to sort that and to hold on to that and to build those muscles. But I also know it's possible. And I also know that you can do it, and that it's okay, because now time is safe. The second thing that is part of reflective skills is noticing your inner experience without judgment. This is something I myself am learning right now, and it's really super hard for me. I don't think of myself as a judgmental person, but it turns out I'm really hard on myself and the others inside. So this workbook says to notice what others' experiences are and how they share them, not to judge them for what they think, feel, or do. Be curious about why they're thinking that or feeling that or doing that, and to ask them questions. Now, because I'm a fan of avoidance, I have to tell you that this seems more challenging. I feel like we've worked really hard in the last year to get the now time is safe, and we're getting that down. Like, we're getting better at it. We still sometimes need some reassurance, but we can ask for the reassurance, and we get it, and it's confirmed to us, and we can hold on to it. But this part about not judging others, or actually being curious about why they're there and what they know or what their function is or what they hold, that seems pretty terrifying to me. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for us in the next couple of weeks as we get to know each other kind of in a new way. The third thing it says as part of reflective skills is noticing similarities and differences between those of us inside. Is noticing similarities and differences. So similarities
I can
and
finally
differences
do it
amongst the different ones inside.
like normal.
But also similarities and differences between the past and the present. Like, what in the present is reminding you of the past.
Hang on, I think I gotta
But
plug in the
also,
leap motion thing.
what in the present is different from the past. So the dish may break in the present time, and that may be very similar to what happened in past time, in memory time. But what's different is that I am safe. My children aren't going to get hurt. I'm not going to get hurt. I have the husband. I have help. I'm in a safe home. I will still get food to eat. I will still get a bed to sleep in. I will still have privacy. I will still have safety. I will still be loved. All of these things are different in the present than they were in the past. And then also notice the different similarities and differences between yourself and others, inside or external people, as well as similarities and differences between inner fears and external realities. So one example is today. Today is our therapy day. We're supposed to have therapy today. We're supposed to see the therapist. She promised that we could. We have an appointment. It's our regular day to see her. But we did not get to see her today. The reason we didn't get to see her is because our son had surgery and we still have to be here to take care of him. So externally, that's all that happened. It actually had nothing to do with the therapist
Really?
at all. What's the same
I could do it that way
is that
too.
I did not get to see the therapist. And the feelings that come up with that, or the sensations that come up with that, or the thoughts that I hear from others about that are about some being relieved that we don't have to go because therapy is hard. There are some who are angry that we are not getting to go when she said we could, even though it has nothing to do with her. We're the ones that canceled. She didn't cancel. Some are disappointed because they really look forward to seeing her. Some are sad because we had things specific we wanted to share and now we don't get to share them or talk to her today. Some are frustrated because we worked really hard on the things that we had prepared to do in therapy today, and now we don't even get to go. And for me specifically, I feel like every time we miss a week, it takes us back like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, yeah. I know we've been working on specific things these last few weeks in therapy, and I know when we go back to therapy next week, we're not going to be able to work on those things. Like, we're going to be back to reestablishing safety, and everybody knows now time is safe. And we maybe will get through that phase a little bit more quickly this time, but it's frustrating because I know missing 1 week is really like missing 2 weeks. And so that's progress because missing 1 week isn't like missing a whole month. We don't have to go all the way back to the beginning, but it's still going to take some reconnection and reassurance before we're able to get back into the rhythm of things. And it's super frustrating in that way because we're already working so hard outside of sessions that's why it feels bad, even if it's not the therapist's fault and even if it's not our fault. Like, it's because it's the right thing. We should be with the children this week. We should be with our son. Like, it is the right thing. No one did anything wrong. But even in that neutral example, there are still big feelings and different perspectives and different opinions about it, and lots of layers to work through. At the same time, it's different from the past or different externally from some of those fears. The therapist did not cancel our appointment. The therapist is still there if we need her. We still have an appointment for next week. We still have plans to return to therapy. This is not like we've been cut off from all help forever. See, so it helps address some of that black and white thinking as well as some of the big feelings like fear or anxiety or confusion about what's going on. But also, the more we're able to communicate and explain, this is just because the son is sick and we are being a good mom to stay with him and we're doing the right thing to be present with the family. We've done the right thing to communicate with the therapist. She knows it. So maybe she was able to help other people during our time, or maybe she got some hours to do paperwork, or maybe she got to go in late to work. Whatever it is, that everything is actually okay. So it's a good opportunity to practice those new skills. And that leads to the fourth part of being reflective, which is being empathetic. And being empathetic is for respecting the struggle and the perspectives and what others are going through, whether that's yourself, others outside, or others inside. Being empathetic to your responses, to your struggles, to your feelings. All of that is part of mentalizing and part of being reflective and present in what's going on. So that means this week, I can guarantee you that the littles are going to be a hot mess. I can guarantee you that John Mark is going to be really frustrated and sad that he did not get to see the therapist today. I can tell you that Sarah, who had things to share with the therapist, is going to back off and not pop up for a while, because if she can't say, or if she's going to get in trouble for saying things, which is not what happened, but it's how she's going to feel, then she's not going to come and talk for a while, because it's just that hard to do and to reestablish that. So being empathetic helps me understand their perspectives rather than only just being irritated with them. Another example of being empathetic would be, because I understand that, I could also understand that there are other ways to reach out to them and to meet their needs in other ways that are maybe supportive. Like, I can't fix that we can't see the therapist today. I can't undo that. I can't make it happen that we go back in time, stay in the present, but go back in time and still get to see the therapist. Like, it just is. We cannot see the therapist today. There's nothing I can do about that. And we can be disappointed and frustrated and sad. But at the same time, I can connect with them in understanding that they're struggling and that it's hard and that I need to be sensitive to them this week. So for example, John Mark's all about the snacks, right? So I can make sure that one of the after school snacks this week for the outside kids is chips and salsa, so that John Mark gets some salsa and knows that he's being attended to. Sarah and Katie have been doing some specific paintings and were somehow able to connect with something that was helpful and good and helped them feel connected to the therapist. So we will make sure that Katie and Sarah, who's often with Katie, that they get time to paint this week and that they get time to play and talk with the painting or whatever it is they do. Like, it's not my thing. I don't know how to do it. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to do it for them. I just need to be present and create the time and space that they are able to do that in. Does that make sense? So part of being present with that is acknowledging that part of being present in all of these ways and avoiding avoidance by mentalizing is literally thinking through the steps of what your inner experience is and staying with it long enough just to be aware. You maybe don't have to deal with it right now. You maybe don't have to fix anything. And maybe you even can't. Like, we cannot go to therapy today. Our therapy time is actually past at this point. So it's already done. We already missed her this week. But what we can do is recognize that minor situations will feel like major situations. But being proactive about it and empowering ourselves to choose our responses rather than things exploding. We don't need to run away. We don't need to hurt the body. We don't need to panic and think we'll never see the therapist again. This is actually a small thing that's happening, but the small thing is triggering big feelings. And knowing that ahead of time and knowing that while it's happening helps prevent some of the bigger symptoms or some of the bigger acting out or some of the complicated feelings or perceptions from others inside who maybe feel like that they are not being listened to or getting what they need or able to participate in the ways that they want. It helps meet your own needs for safety and stabilization, but it helps meet their needs for safety and stabilization too, which benefits the entire system. So, for example, the things to notice in the homework assignment for this chapter, if we're using the example from today that we can't go to therapy, then the situation and perceptions that Emma wrote down were that missing therapy is too hard, my family needs me, but I can't function well without therapy, they are interrupting what we've been working on for a few weeks, I won't be able to work on hard things anymore. So these are not necessarily entirely accurate or true statements, because we will be able to work on hard things again in therapy, and the children are not trying to interrupt by needing anything. They're just children, and that's true of the inside kids and the outside kids. And whatever we've been working on in therapy, we'll get back to it when it's time and when we have the space and energy to do that, and it's okay. And missing therapy is hard, but it's not too hard because we're still here and we're still okay, and we could still connect with the therapist through the notebook or through text or whatever. And so while those are accurate perceptions, It doesn't mean they have to be the finality of experience. Does that make sense? So when I say those aren't true, I'm not saying that I don't believe the others inside or whoever had those thoughts or feelings. I'm just saying that the bigger picture and the whole system experience put together, that there's more information to it. So when we focus on the feelings and sensations related to this example, what she wrote was, I cried for a long time. I was sad. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was overwhelmed. And let me interrupt to just say that that's a big deal. She wrote those things because none of those things were actually hers. Like, I could tell you who felt and who did those different things and who those belonged to, but they weren't Emma's. But she's recognizing herself as part of the system and recognizing and acknowledging what she is aware of what others inside are experiencing. She also wrote some from the littles. Maybe it was because I was naughty. Maybe it was because the therapist was angry. Maybe it was because I did it wrong or said too much. That's Sarah. Sarah's going to think that. She can hear someone inside crying. I think that's Sarah. She can feel others who had grown closer back away further. That's also Sarah. So she's definitely tuning into Sarah. She doesn't know that she's tuning into Sarah, but I can tell she's tuning into Sarah because I know Sarah. So for her to write these things is way more aware than what she's been, even if she still doesn't have all the pieces. So this is big. And then she also felt Cassie back. And Cassie being back again is just more of a protective piece and part of keeping us safe. So then the next part of the homework assignment asks, when you became aware and noticed all these things, what did you do about it, right? So she wrote that she emailed the therapist to cancel. She avoided telling her how hard it was to cancel. Oh, she avoided telling the therapist how hard it was to cancel. We did not want to cancel. That was a really hard decision. And in fact, some of us didn't know about it when it happened. So it wasn't done entirely well, but it was the right thing. And so on the other side of working through this as a group, we understand why she did it and that it was the right thing. But it's really frustrating. And also the therapist is just like one of 3 safe people in our lives. And so it's really hard to just miss getting to see her besides the therapeutic experience itself, right? She also texted the receptionist to reassure the message got through to avoid bothering the therapist. And then she stayed busy to avoid her feelings. Oh, and she marked that she heard someone say that. So that was not just her experience, but another insider, and she was able to catch it and recognize it, which is a big deal because in the past, she's told the husband that she just hears the noise of us. She can't hear the specific people or the specific ones of us talking. So that's a big deal that she's starting to differentiate us. I'm trying to be chill with that. In some ways, it bothers me a little bit because I think we're just safer. She doesn't know anything, but that's avoidance, right? And not what we're working on. We're working on mentalizing. Which, by the way, I think is a ridiculous word. There's got to be a better word for it. Maybe it just doesn't translate well. Maybe I'm not understanding it well. It's very specific to Kathy Steele and the people who wrote this book. But I think it's a funky word and that we could come up with a better word because it means when I'm avoiding, what is that? Dementalizing. So I don't really like the word mentalizing, but I see where they're trying to go with it. Anyway, the next question is the reactions of others. So we talked about that. Some are relieved, some are upset, one is angry, some are scared, one wanted to run because it's too much. So that's another good example of something to point out because it's not just about missing therapy. It's also about losing the therapist. There are layers of that perception that we won't get to keep the therapist because no one has ever kept us before, right? Or we've never gotten to do the keeping of, I choose you as an amazing person. Thank you for staying in my life forever. Like, we've never gotten to do that. But now we have the husband and the therapist, and we're trying to learn how to make friends. And so when we feel that and think that and decide, okay, therapist, you're on the list of like the top few people that we are letting into the sacred space of our own awesomeness, then it's hard not to be able to connect with her. Like, we're already geographically distant, so to lose that through time, which is already hard to hold on to, that's just difficult. But at the same time, we also really felt like we needed her because last week was super hard. There were so many triggers last week, I can't even talk about it. Surgery week and having the other 5 children on our own while the husband was at the hospital, or us being in the hospital and in that small room, which is a trigger for us for medical trauma we've had with our daughter, and other issues that relate back to our own childhood. Like, there were so many layers of triggers last week, and we were exhausted. We were mentally spent and just really, really, really struggling. Probably the most we've been struggling since Christmas, when all of that went down. Since the first of the year, when all of those things went down in our family. And so, plus it was a holiday weekend. Like, there were just so many triggers and so much happening all at once. It was the worst timing for missing the therapist. So that's an accurate perception. But also at the same time, as far as building reflective skills for muscles, like, it was definitely a time to lift some weights and be like, okay, we've got this. We are brave and strong because she said so. And now that's in our head and everybody is knowing it. So let's be brave and strong, and we can just make it another week. And it's not that big of a deal, except that it is. So it's okay to feel both. It's okay to say, this is a minor thing, but I'm having big feelings about it. Or it's a minor thing, but there are lots of us having different feelings about it. Or I know that I'm brave, and I know that I'm strong, and I know that I'm awesome, but this is still really hard. It's okay to say that and to feel that and to think that. So the next question on reflective skills is about how did they affect behaviors or decisions, those feelings and the responses of others and all of that the homework's already gone through. So she wrote, we painted, we took a nap outside, we went for a walk instead of freaking out. We also called a friend, which is the first time we've ever done that in such a direct way. And we also texted the therapist to make sure now time was still safe. And she did respond to that. And so that was good. That's what we needed. The painting, the sunshine, the nap. We were so tired after being in the hospital all last week. So getting some sleep, doing some self-care, some expression through painting, some connection with nature and sunshine. All of these things helped us feel much better, even though we were dealing with the hard things. And then the last question is about what is the pattern that you notice? So like the pattern of our response to avoidance, the more we become aware of that, the more we can notice like what to do with it or how to deal with it instead of continuing to only avoid or only dissociate. So if we notice patterns, we can start to intervene like in our own behalf and try to make changes and empower ourselves to respond in ways that are conscious and that we're choosing rather than just automatic. So what Emma wrote was, I guess the pattern from before would be to disengage instead of connecting and to hide instead of asking for help. But instead, I found ways to express myself through painting and to connect by contacting the therapist and calling our friend, and instead of isolating more or dissociating as much. So we handled this hard thing this week way better than we handled everything that happened when we missed a bunch of weeks because of snow and holidays at the end of last year. So this was huge. Yes, it was still hard. It doesn't take away that this was still hard. But we handled it better and differently than in the past. And that's what makes us rock stars. Thank you for joining us with System Speak, a podcast about dissociative identity disorder. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes, or follow along on our website, www.systemspeak.org. Thanks for listening.
Hello? Hello? Okay. I have no idea how long I've been muted. I'm so sorry about that. Oh my goodness. I accidentally clicked the mute button on voice mod somehow. I really like how this is coming out. Actually, I think it's done. I just gotta go over it, make sure there's no white bits. I can delete the roughies, and I can delete the sketchy, and I can add a background. I don't remember if there was anything I said when 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 I realized that voice mod. Oh, I was just saying that the screen. I like fit the screen a lot better than stretch the screen for drawing anyway. Some games we might prefer it stretched, but I never realized that you had to stretch it to have it fill out. I think it's because the tablet screen might be, I don't know, it's different than the computer screen. Oh wait, I know what it was. It was for lesbians. We cropped it. We cropped the screen. That's what it was. Let me. Wait, I'm trying to uncrop it. I hit the wrong key, I think. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Oh my goodness. I forgot that we crapped. I forgot that we cropped our screen when we played lesbians because the window capture wasn't working. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna play the next system speak. I'm just gonna finish this up and then I'll go on to one of the simpler. I think I should maybe be able to finish two of these like bust shot. There's one where we just kind of drew the head on a paw, and there's one where we kind of just did a bust. I think I should be able to finish those two like in an hour because I think they should be pretty quick to color. This OC coloring went by faster than I thought it would too. Okay, now listen next one, which is Robert Oxenham. Guest speaker.
Welcome to the System Speak podcast. If you would like to
It's kind of
support
quiet, so
our
I'll turn it up.
efforts at sharing our story, fighting stigma about dissociative identity disorder, and educating the community and the world about trauma, please go to our website at www.systemspeak.org, and there is a button for donations where you can offer a one-time donation to support the podcast or become an ongoing subscriber. We so appreciate the support, the positive feedback, and you sharing our podcast with others. We are all learning together. Thank you.
Now, what was this character's name? AT, I think. Oh, I just realized something I forgot to color in. Hello?
Tonight we have a special guest, Robert B. Oxenham, who is internationally recognized as an outstanding Asia specialist and dynamic speaker. He often accompanies prominent Americans such as Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, former President George Bush, and Barbara Bush as they seek in-depth first-hand knowledge of China. For more than a decade, he was president of the Asia Society, which is headquartered in New York, across the United States, and throughout the Asia-Pacific region. He is a renowned scholar who appeared frequently on television and traveled the world as a sought-after expert. But what the millions of people who had seen him didn't know, what even those closest to him didn't know, was that Oxenham suffered from multiple personality disorder, now called dissociative identity disorder. It was only after an intervention staged by family and friends in response to frequent blackouts and episodic rages assumed to be alcohol-driven that he sought treatment with Dr. Jeffrey Smith. It was during these sessions that the first of his 11 personalities emerged, and after years of treatment, he has integrated them into 3, Robert, Wanda, and Bobby, who take turns narrating the remarkable, unprecedented chronicle of his story in the book, A Fractured Mind, My Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. He and I have been emailing for several months and have had several attempts where we thought we were going to meet in person or talk on the phone or have an interview for the podcast, and things have come up over and over again. So it's been quite difficult to connect, and yet I have appreciated his determination to continue connecting, to remain in contact, and to become a friend that I do appreciate, as he shares on the podcast tonight, and with the work that he's now doing with McLean Hospital and in other ways to educate the community, even the world, about dissociative identity disorder. Welcome, Robert Oxnem.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Great. Well, we finally did it.
Oh, it's been hard to connect. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. It's surely at least half my fault. So, no problem. And this is going to be used as a podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and you have a regular access to podcast. You have your own podcast, I take it.
Yes.
Oh, such an enterprising lady you are. Tell me how you got interested in DID.
I was diagnosed about a year ago, but I had previously been diagnosed as well, and I didn't know that.
So you mean that the diagnosis was made by the doctor, but not conveyed to you?
Right. Well, I was apparently, now I know, now I understand, but I was apparently diagnosed in grad school, and so years and years ago, but then I was not aware of that myself, I guess, and I went on to get to finish graduate school. I got my doctorate. I'm licensed as a counselor in 2 states, and I was doing that work until both of my parents died, and then everything kind of fell apart.
Oh my goodness, died, I mean, in close proximity to each other? I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah, well, my father died of cancer, and then my mother was killed by a drunk driver on the way home from the funeral.
Oh, Emma.
It just brought up a lot.
That's absolutely terrible. You've had a hard life.
Sometimes, yeah. I'm in a good place now, and I'm grateful. But the podcast was one way I could continue sort of the way I was learning and some of the work I was doing, but learn this myself as well.
Good for you. Good for you. So are you involved then now in dealing with others who have DID, or and the podcast is part of that?
I don't treat other people with DID because I'm just not in a place to do that right now. But the podcast is, the people who listen to it all either have DID or they treat DID.
Oh, well, that's. I didn't think you would. You're a doctor dealing with. I don't know what practice you're in, but that's a wonderful thing you're doing. And podcasts are so in now, and that you can have quite a following, I guess.
I'm grateful. There's about now 42 countries where there are people listening regularly, and about 4,000 people a week.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm honored to be one chosen for that. And actually, I've worked very close with McLean Hospital in Boston. And they have a guy who did an interview with me and on a podcast. So I've done it once before.
Well, I talked to them, and they almost scheduled with me for me to interview them about some of the program they're doing, but then they canceled at the last minute right before the conference in Florida. So I don't know if they were overwhelmed with schedules or they didn't like my podcast, but they changed their mind. But I was grateful you still wanted to be interviewed.
No, I'm happy to do it. You think that they took exception to what you were doing, or what?
That's how it felt, but I honestly don't have enough information to know if that was just my perception or my concern or if that was accurate. But they had been talking to me, we had interviews set up, and then they changed their mind and don't reply to me anymore. So
Oof.
Who were you talking to there?
they're PR people because I was going to interview Dr. Melissa Kaufman, and then
Sure.
the woman that is also doing the marketing for the program they're doing.
So it wasn't Melissa Kaufman that
No.
made the decision. Yeah, I know the lady, Adriana, right?
Adriana was one that I was going to talk with Adriana and Melissa together. And then
And,
I got an
and so
email from someone else that they changed their mind.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I do remain very closely connected to McLean Hospital, and I've been driving in the direction of trying to have really nationwide public education about DID and what it is, what it isn't, and how it can be handled, and all of that. So I think you know some of the numbers, I guess, the number of people that the American Psychiatric Association has put out as to numbers of people who have it in the United States.
What did they say now?
What they say now, and it's a figure, when I was first diagnosed back in the, oh gosh, when was this? It was in the early 1990s.
Excuse me.
The number that was given to me by my physician was 1 in 10,000 people.
Whoa,
Turns
that's a
out
lot.
that the new estimate is that in the United States as a whole, someplace between 3 and 9 million people.
Wow.
So we're talking about, and somebody then did a study of what would that look like if we had if we got all DIDs together and we all occupied one state, it would be the size of Delaware.
That's so many people.
I know it's huge, but the thing about it is that people have been misdiagnosed for years and years, when in fact DID was the proper diagnosis. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is people who have had the difficulties that we've had. That is a series of traumatic episodes when we're young folks, especially between the ages of 3 and 6. That we tend to try to bury those memories rather than face up with them. And so lots of people have had it without knowing they had it, and not even knowing it had a name. And that's still true in a lot of places.
Right.
That's I just wanted to get a little background on you, and I've got it now. So
if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. My name is Robert Oxnam, and I'm currently 76 years old, and I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder and was seen as something extraordinarily scary. And we've now recognized that it's quite a large number of people in the United States are likely to have it. It's caused, as it was caused with me, with some terrible things that happened, traumatic things that happened to me when I was a child. And it was back in the era of World War II, which meant that families were separated and there was terrible fear of losing loved ones and all of that. So there was a lot of tension in the air. And I think some of that was led to traumatic things in terms of beatings, in terms of screaming, and in terms of threats. In my case, I was beaten regularly, and I had to go out and actually cut the the uh, the bushes that they would use to beat me. And I was locked up in a old ice box, and I thought I was going to die. I mean, it was all that kind of horrible thing that should not happen to children. And over the years, I've done lots of things. I've been a China scholar, doctorate from Yale University, and taught for several years about Chinese history. Ran an organization called the China Council, which was part of a larger institution, which was the Asia Society, which still continues today. And it's for public education purposes, but it has allowed me to do things not just in the U.S., but around the world. And so whenever I get into talking about things that relate to DID in other cultures, there are lots of people who really say, gee, I know someone who seems to be like what you're describing. So my wife is from India, so we spend a lot of time there. I speak Chinese, and so I've lived in China for a number. I think I've visited China 85 times,
Wow.
which is a lot. But and in recent years, I have become very interested in public education on dissociative identity disorder. Public education meaning that the people of the United States ought to know that it's an understandable reaction to horrible events. And it is once diagnosed, and now there are a number of practitioners who are very good at that. Then there is a long period of trying to understand what is going on in your own mind. How does dissociation work for you or work against you? And how dealing with others who have dissociative identity disorder, sometimes bringing them all together in conferences like the one that you went to and the one that I spoke at. I've done it for the last 10 years. That this is a chance for people who have DID to talk to each other. There is possibilities of some films coming out that describe accurately what DID is. So my hope is that this very difficult psychiatric problem can be understood much more broadly around the United States, not just for the people who might have it, but also the people who might have caused it and the people who might be helpers, whether it's in your family or a broader connection among friends. But that's sort of where it is today. I think we're well ahead of where we were 30 years ago, but there's a long way to go. And so conversations, I hope, like this will help people understand that there's a real reason that it happened, and there are real effects that go through the rest of your life, and that there are ways of dealing with it and controlling it, and there are people who can help in that. So that's become a real cause for me. That's it in a nutshell. Oh, yes, I also wrote a book called The Fractured Mind, which was published in 2005, which did remarkably well and led to a lot of TV and radio conversations. And so
I really love that.
that got me really going on the whole notion that we got to take this disorder that probably afflicts millions of people in our own country and tens of millions around the world, and understand it and be able to cope with it better, because the public at large will know more about it. So that's the cause, and that's my life in a nutshell.
That's amazing. That's so much.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about it, that people who have DID often are creative.
Oh.
And it's partly, I think, because we recognize we have several parts to ourselves, separate identities that emerge. And if not treated, that can be a real problem. If treated, you find out that you have access to all kinds of capacities that most people don't recognize. And so, therefore, I've been able to do all of those things that I was describing. But I've also turned to art, as a lot of DIDs do, and some of them are very good artists.
What?
And I'm a sculptor working in found wood, and I'm a photographer uh, looking at glacial rocks, close up shots. And I'm now a painter, and I've had exhibitions and all of that. But the exhibitions are just, it's the icing on the cake. It's the process of recognizing that if you have these different identities and you have a single cause that you're focusing on, in many ways, we're in better straits than most people are, because they don't have the capacity really to reach in and
Character's name is
recognize
Dweeb. I'm not
that there are
making fun
different
of them.
parts of us that you can bring together in this process. So in doing art, it's also the psychology of it is that I call it cohesive multiplicity. I'm sorry to give it a big long name like that, but people in the medical field like long names. So cohesive multiplicity, that is a way in which you draw together these energy sources inside of you and can project it in art. So
Yeah.
that's me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. That's a
Yeah.
big discussion right now in the
I just want to say that makes me so excited that someone is talking about the intersectionality between DID and being a creative person, because that's something we think about a lot and don't know how to properly talk about, because it makes it sound like you just made up your alders on purpose. But I think it does if you are like having all these different identities with all these different like what do I want to say? Hi, Fuki! With all these different like traits and characters and appearances and stuff, I think it does like bleed into creativity somehow. I want to talk about the therapist with like that, because I want to know how to talk about it without sounding really disrespectful. Like like, oh, you have all these headmates. That's so creative. I guess you could say just the headmates on their own isn't like anything you're doing on purpose, but coming up with like what they look like and designing their characters and stuff, that takes creativity. Okay. I was gonna screenshot the whole reference of this character, and then I realized that's
DID community, actually, because there are so many who feel that some level of functional multiplicity, or you're saying cohesive multiplicity, should be discussed more than it is and not so easily dismissed. Not that therapy has to stop when you reach this stage or that stage, but more about just treatment for DID takes so long and our lives don't stop in the meantime. And
That's right.
even after therapy, even if someone did do so much therapy they finally could stop and they were okay, like whatever that means to whoever, that life is still happening, and that spectrum of yourself is still there, and how that gets expressed and how that functions.
Well, yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, there are bad trips that one can take, and there's the good trips that one can take. The question is getting to know that family of characters that one has inside, and getting internal conversations going, and then finding what you agree on and what you don't agree on. And it's like going to a party and meeting a bunch of people, and then the same party keeps going on and on and on in life. If not taken to proper medical auspices, it can remain chaotic for life. But if indeed one finds someone you can work with, or several people you can work with, you can actually think about this as your sort of inner family. And as an inner family, they can either be dangerous to each other, or they can be helpful to each other.
Right.
And the latter is preferred. And therefore, I mean, doing artwork is just one example. But I actually think I have a richer life than do most. We sometimes rather pompously call people who don't have DID singletons.
Right.
And singletons ought to be jealous in some ways of those of us who are multiples, because they have the same capacity inside them, but they don't know how to unlock it. And those of us who have DID know that there are internal conversations going on. And it can make for chaos, but it could also make for creativity. And that's my argument.
I love that. And I think those were two things that I really especially loved about your book. One was that you shared your story of being so high functioning professionally when all of this unfolded as far as your diagnosis, because I was not the president of the Asia Society, but I had a job and I was functioning, and to deal with what felt like stigma or shame and all of those layers of everything sort of falling apart around me when I was so wrapped up, me specifically, my identity was so wrapped up with this professional side of my life that I didn't know how to deal with things moving forward after diagnosis. And your book really described well how you did it. I mean, the other thing about your book that I loved was there are several different biographies out there or stories out there where they share a lot about what happened when they were growing up and how they became DID and things like that, which is fine. But your book really talked about the process of diagnosis and treatment and life through therapy. And
absolutely, that was and also the unique thing about the book is that all of us inside had a say in the writing of the book. And in fact, you actually get to meet the different identities and see where there's a conflict, and see where there's cooperation, and see where ways in which you can learn together. And as soon as I saw my way into that, I recognized that I could have done the artwork, sort of as a profession that is as much about psychology and healing as it is about making nice art that is appealing to people.
Another
Right.
raid? You
And
know,
so
maybe we
that
should
was
look into
one
getting
of the purposes
insurance
of
on
the
these
book.
things.
The sort of
That happened earlier where voice mod got muted, but I don't know how that happened. Is there like a button on my tablet that's the same as the minus key? Because the minus key is the mute button. I don't know why did that keep happening? I have no idea how long I've been muted. But welcome. I was saying, I hope you had a great stream. I heard that Fabon and Bells were playing Minecraft together, and I hope you crafted the craft punk. Uh, wait, there's a raid message? Or you mean the raid noise dojo? Fair raid. Yippee! I've been coloring art fight sketches. Art fight revenges. Yeah. Oh, dojo, yeah. Another raid? You know, maybe we should be looking to get insurance on these things. I love dojo. Yeah, I've been listening to System Speak. I don't know if I have anything else to say, but welcome. Whee!
so thing. And you may remember that in the book that we were all captured in a castle, and we all had different places in the castle, and there were scary things that happened, and there were creative things that happened, but they were never on the same wavelength. And the escape from that castle to a meadow away from it, and some conjoining of these different identities once we were on this very nice meadow made for the possibility of cooperation and learning from each
nice.
other.
What was your Minecraft challenge?
That to me turned out to be the most fascinating thing I've done in my life, is to find out what was going on inside my head and to try to turn us into at least friends, if not a team. And eventually, by the way, shrinks loved long multisyllabic words, so say cohesive multiplicity, people love it, but it really has an effect. And it's not just in art. I'm a failed musician. I always wanted to play the guitar. I bought several guitars, and it turns out that there are
It's so cool. You
impediments
guys
just
so
don't let me do
creative
that.
with
But
your
I've become friends with
crafting.
music people around the world, and I find
Sound kind of
every
old saying
summer
that.
there is a retreat for extraordinarily talented rising conductors, classical music conductors, up in Maine. And the guy who runs it read my book and called me one day and told me that I'd written one of the best books ever on what it means to be a conductor. I said, "You got the wrong book, the wrong name." He said, "Oh no, I got you." He said, "If this is a wonderful statement he made. He said, uh, if the conductor is incapable of encompassing all of the different instruments, all of the different performers, all in a concert," he said, "then you should go immediately back to the booth where you bought the tickets and tear yours up because
Oh, good
it's going to be
night.
a lousy concert
Have a good
that
hunt
you've got to
shoe.
get them into. And he said, "What do you call it?" I said, "Cohesive multiplicity." He said, that is what classical music is about." And so, I mean, I never thought I would. And so I've even gone up there, and every year they make me conduct part of a symphony. And I'm never very good at it, but I'm better than I thought I could be.
That's
And more,
amazing.
yeah. But the thing about it is, they go away, and they're thinking as these are young conductors,
Boy,
relatively
boy.
young, between 20 and 35, something like that, and they're extraordinary musicians, just wonderful. But the way in which we teach music in this part of the world is drills and going at it, and hard work, and just straight. It's just kind of a straight line. Well, learning it, yes, is partly that. You've got to learn technique, and you've got to learn how to read notes and write notes, and all of that.
I'll
But
actually use
the
a lighter
key
color
aspect
for
to it is to grow
the
as time goes
eyebrows
on
and
and
the
find other parts
mouth because you
inside of
can't
you
really see them.
that make for better music for you. And as a conductor, anywhere from 20 to 80 people out there together playing in cohesion. And so that it's a kick because I never thought that I would be around great musicians because I was a failed musician, but I have something I can talk to them about and they find useful.
It's such an incredible analogy and a visual. It's so helpful to me. I was just working. I went to school and I worked, and that's all I did. And I never questioned why I didn't remember this part of my life, or why I didn't remember that part of my life, or
Mm-hmm.
what happened when I wasn't doing homework or working or school. And the diagnosis was very unsettling to me, and it's very difficult for me to want to open up to that and to want to learn about the others inside, or what they're doing, or why they're doing that, much less understand or have empathy even. And your book was such a portrait of those dynamics and why it matters, and helped me to have more compassion for myself. And when I started doing the podcast, initially I thought we could talk about what DID is and interview people, and I could learn about it almost like homework in school, like I did anything else. But what's happened are other episodes I didn't know about, or others inside doing their own episodes, or making friends with other people who have DID but are share things in common with people I never would have met otherwise. And
Mm-hmm.
listening to the podcast myself, I have learned more about our system and about each other and the others
Maybe I have
inside
time for
than I
one more.
ever would have learned on my own.
That's a great story too. I mean, that's you. The thing that we ought to recognize is you're going to have DID all your life. You're not, it's not something you get rid of, but it is something that if you look to the creative side, as I described earlier and you just described, there is a whole new world out there, and
This
the
is
options.
I'm oh, I think I was saying, but I might have been when I was muted. You didn't know. I'm coloring different attacks, revenges for people's on art fight. This is someone. So see this person. Who did this person draw? I um I gotta go check. Oh yeah, this person drew Scrappy. Art fight's so cool. I'm glad we're participating, even though it's like the second to last day. Better wait than never. I know, right? She reminds me of my girlfriend. She's so cute. She's so pretty. Oh, maybe I could show her attacks we've gotten. I feel like it's only fair, and it could also show the what the character looks like that I just do. Here's their Scrappy. And we got so this person here's their character. Not bad, not bad. Just do Valkyrie, and then there's a mouse in the corner. Bunch of other cool guys. A mass attack. And this person's character, I think this person we were coloring, we drew a dweeb. Yeah, dweeb. Let me get my art of dweeb so you can see. Here's my dweeb I drew earlier. Alright, colored. I think Cuddle draws and I color for the most part. And then let's see. I can at least show the sketches of what I'm not getting to. Here's Kitty, which is drawn by our friend Ashley. For her, we did Amethyst. We had to draw her Murder Drones OC. There's her reference, and then here's the one I drew for her. And here's Millie. For this person, this is the one I was gonna do next. This character. I thought I have enough time to color this one. Let me get my sketchy up. This is my sketch I'm gonna color. This character, and then there's one more character that I don't think I have enough time to color on stream, but I'll color later today probably. I can at least show my sketch of the character and show the character's reference and what they drew for us in a second. Yeah, of course. And thank you. Copy that. For referees. Color referees. Probably won't color pick for this one because I think this is darker than, because it looks like it was taken by picture or maybe a not so great scanner, but that's okay. It gives me enough idea what colors to be. My little ponies in the bottom. Let's see. We got Q. Wow, this was our first attack. I guess it's a defense for us. It's an attack when you draw someone else. Our first attack we received. This person. I love how they have like their friends' profiles, and each friend has a funny little cat meme. Whoops. Wait, did I click on the right thing? Yeah. Yeah, where's the possum that I'm drawing? That we drew. Yeah. Stab, stab, yes. That's an amazing name for a character. So I don't think I'm gonna color this on stream, but I can at least show the character and our sketch. We forgot to sketch the tail, but I'll make sure to add the tail when I go to color it. Who's friends with so many funny cats? You mean this guy? Oh wait, yeah. They had all those icons of all those cats. Why did I immediately forget that? Yeah. Think of this cat. I loved them all. This kid's pretty good. They're all so cute. The little hands. How did I miss the hands? Okay, I'm gonna go back to the podcast. How many minutes? There are, is that like a little less than 20 minutes? So I'll color this and we'll see where we are after that.
That that you can follow. Did you ever think 20 years ago that you would be um, on on the air with podcasts? About probably not.
Absolutely
And
not.
and so now it takes you into a zone which
Yippee!
is
I'm glad you like the
self-challenge.
podcast.
But the part of it you put your own energy into it, and you find out that you have inside alters who are helpful to all of that. And then every once in a while, I get really angry or something and sort of blow up. But then recovering from that, almost always, I find that thinking about why did I do that, and then thinking about hearing other
Maybe a color pick and
inputs
then
in
make
my
it
own
lighter.
brain saying we can't do it that way. We got to do it a different way. So then that's a completely different personality helping to do cohesive multiplicity inside. So it's not just me that does it. It's one or two or three of those who remain as part of my system, and you find out, gee whiz, I have a lot more creativity in me and in this lifetime, um, and you can become a sort of beacon for people who are struggling. And when I talk to musicians, it's almost like you wouldn't know that I'm a terrible musician, but I'm a pretty good person to talk to about what they're missing in when they do music. So the people have asked me to listen to this. These are famous violinists and stuff, and willing to take criticism or at least advice from someone who has something that they would like inside of them. And we all have that possibility. My sense is that everybody has a capacity for multiplicity, um, one reason or another. But most people on the planet don't have that created by something horrible that happened early in their life. And so you don't have to go through that horror story in order to understand that you can use all of these different faculties in fresh ways. And that's what really keeps. Sometimes musicians, they're very interesting folks. They can be absolutely fabulous, but the best ones are like Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma constantly is reinventing himself, constantly is doing new works, constantly is. I was fortunate enough to get to know him, not really well, but well enough that we talked, and he wrote me a letter, and he liked the book too. So,
I'm
but
almost
that's
wondering
the kind of imagination,
if
that
I'm able to
he
draw
started
color. Stab, stab.
playing the
Yes,
cello
yes.
when he was
Maybe
4 years
not.
old, and he had a rather tough time with his father, who was kind of old school teacher. And he obviously got a lot out of that, but he obviously also said, I'm going to go beyond this. I'm going to do this in a different way. And he's one of the most, he's not only a great, great musician, but he is also thinking globally. So he sets up things around the world where playing classical music and relating to audiences is opens up their hearts too. You can't help but find out a lot of things just by listening to Yo-Yo Ma's cello, any cello piece he plays. So, and that's just one example. But we all have that, and he took the. In fact, he wrote me in the letter that he wrote me after he read the book. He said, you know, um, we, I ought to come by. He said, sometime you and I will go to lunch together. And he said, But he said, you've got 11 personalities. I don't have enough money to pay for the dinner. So he has, and so you have to learn that, laughing, in fact, is a very important part. Finding things that make you smile, that make you laugh, that's a time in which other parts of very serious people or people who've been hurt one way or another, it allows you to actually meet different parts of yourself and recognize that those are the brighter side of life and they deserve to have more airtime than just finding out something because there's a problem or an issue or whatever. It needs to be a way of living. And so I think we as DIDs who struggle through all of this have some things when we really ought to smile about. That life, I'm not a belief in the afterlife, I'm a
Yeah.
believer in the afterlife, but I don't know what happens after you die. But I do know that what happens when you live is that lots and lots of people I know, many that I know very well, uh, just are have sort of lose the energy that it takes to find other parts of yourself as time goes on, and that's a pity. We all ought to learn.
I think that that's a beautiful part of DID. Um, Discovering those pieces that it's not just all bad, that yes, there are these memories that we need to work through or respond to, but there's also those just amazing pieces that you didn't even know were a part of yourself. When we were starting the podcast, one of the things that we talked about with our husband was we need some sort of opening song because a podcast always has a little something to do for an opening for the show. And so we were thinking, how are we going to get that? How do we pay a licensing fee? And we're trying to figure out all of those things. And he was like, someone's already recorded it on the piano. And I was like, we can't play piano. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, someone already recorded it. And it is. It's a little thing recorded on the piano. And I was like, who did that? I didn't even know I could play piano. And he said, well, I don't know exactly, but I know it's not the same one who plays the cello. And I was like, what? I thought that was your cello. He's like, nope, that's your
Oh,
cello.
Oh
so
wow.
you say you've been down the same road. That's great.
Yes, and
That's
painting too. We have two two that are painters, very different styles, um,
mhm.
and some kind of combinations of that. But it's an amazing thing to find. Comforting even maybe to find some of those good pieces or aspects of DID that are not just trauma memories. Here we go again, but there are good things too.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, my own experience with all of this is because we have ups and downs in all of our lives. If you have DID, but when the dark things happen, I find that there's almost a smile in that. Something that really goes wrong. I mean, in the outer world or in the inner world, um, can be opening another door, and you find out that exploring that other door is far better than sitting around and fretting and swearing and all of that.
Hearing skin
Some of
need to
us
be a
have
little
you have to get
softer.
that off your chest, but underneath there's all kinds of things. It's almost like you have a what do they call it, a first aid kit that you can go in and try another one of the little pill jars it's got in there, pop it in your mouth, and you turn something that hurts into something that says, "Wow, I can do that. I can think of that." In fact, if you have someone around, and that's a really important part of DID, it's far easier to cope with DID if you have an understanding person nearby. I am enormously gifted by the fact that my wife, who's from India,
Oops.
and herself was president of the Asia Society, but is an expert on Asian art and travels all around the world. In fact, I'm jealous of her because people want her to speak and be on this board and da da da. She does that. The only thing I get out of it, she gets to, can you believe this? She's on a board in India where they insist that everybody on the board that comes from abroad has to fly on Emirates first class. Can you believe that?
Oh my
Free.
goodness.
So what happens, all that I get out of it is she's much smaller than I am, but she always gets a large size Emirates, has a little Emirates symbol on it, pajamas. So I have more pajamas from Emirates aircraft from her flying around. But she is just full of energy. She's an extraordinary person. But in all of it, if she wasn't there, I probably wouldn't have been there. I mean, there were a couple of suicide attempts in my life, and I'm not proud of that, but it's fact. A lot of suicidal thought goes on in the minds of those who are in early stages of treatment on DID. And each time she has a way of handling it. And then she travels around, and we now try to take some of these journeys together. And she has got a lot of money left over because of aircraft. You fly a lot, you get a lot of capacities to take somebody else along. So anyway, we often go on trips together, and life is joyful. But she, coming from India, which is one of the other places on earth where multiplicity is understood, because the gods have lots of arms, and there are lots of different gods that are being worshipped. The Indians are sort of way ahead of us. They think in multiple terms rather than singleton terms, and I think that's been great. So the bottom line in all of this is having friends, and ideally someone who is with you most of the time, who is completely understanding. Makes it much easier journey than it would be if you're on all by yourself.
That's amazing that that's part of what you shared today, because that's exactly where we are in sort of our learning and therapy right now, that we need our therapist in an appropriate kind of needing way of having that help, and having the husband, and even learning how to make friends and trust people and figure out who is safe, and we need to say when we need help and things like that. And so that's pretty powerful that you just shared about that. Thank you.
I think, the other aspect of it is if it's a partner, and that you have that connection that really works. There are lots of marriages that fall apart. I had one that fell apart, but this one it's wondrous. And the thing about it is that she, not only is she there when I need it, I don't even have to say it. She recognizes it, and when a problem is occurring, but she's supportive of all kinds of things that I'm doing. And she was an art curator at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts and all of that. So whenever I'm doing something in artwork, she has suggestions that are just spot on. So one can learn from all of this that if you have the right sorts of friendships or family connections, that you can, if the other person really understands what the idea is about, you can find a wonderful world out there, or at least ways of getting through the big humps in the world without taking your own life or causing such hell that people don't want to be around you. So I think there's a real smiling that one ought to have to do, but there's also a recognition that you're dealing with a very difficult disorder, and that it's not all step by step in
I'm
a
just gonna
direction
set up
that
for
makes you smile. But there
Stabby
can be
Possum
ups
for
and
tonight
downs. But in
while
the
the
course of all
podcast
of
is
that,
finishing.
if you can find a cluster of people who understand, it makes all the difference in the world. And I frankly think that we ought to be in a society in which doing what you're doing, uh, podcasts are great for doing this. Any kind of media production of accurate information about DID, destigmatizing DID, I think is a very, very important part of all of this. Um, so I think we're on the right path. There's a lot of It's changed a lot in the 30 years since my diagnosis. Same wavelength, I hope.
I'm so grateful. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate talking with you. I'm sorry it took so long to actually get this to happen, but finally we made it work. By the way, you were at Orlando, right?
Yes, I was, and we were supposed to connect there as well, and your plane was late.
Yeah, that was wasn't that amazing? I mean, they 3 hours before I was going to go, they canceled the flight and I couldn't get on one till the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And so yeah, we lost the chance there, but we had it tonight. So it's a pleasure talking to you, and congratulations on the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the things that you shared. They were really spot
Did the stream
on,
crash?
both for the
Oh
podcast
no!
and for what I myself needed to hear tonight.
Excellent. Well, I'm
Is it
glad
good
I can
now?
help, and talking to you helps me. So it broadens the group that will understand DID, and through the podcast work, I'm sure that'll help a lot.
Thank you so much.
Hey, good to talk. You take care of yourself.
Thank you for joining us with System Speak, a podcast about dissociative identity disorder. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes, or follow along on our website, www.systemspeak.org. Thanks for listening.
That's so funny that stream crashed just like a minute before I'm about to wrap up. Like, I almost wondered if that happened somehow when I unplugged my tablet. Because it seemed to happen right when I unplugged my tablet. I don't know why that would cause it. Just everything going like, oh no, we lost the visuals. Ah, I don't know what to do. I have no idea why that would be the case. It's just, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. Wait, what? Do you have any raid suggestions? I might raid Chupulus because they raided me a couple of times before. I think. Was it them? But I'd like to raid someone with like low views if possible. I don't know if you know anybody that's on right now. I'm holding, I think, a whisker. There's this like hair and it's really thick, but it's kind of twisty to be a whisker. Maybe it's thread or floss, but I think it's a whisker. I just thought I'd share that. Galaxy system. I don't think I do, but I can always raid someone new. I just see that no one that is streaming right now has low views. I'd rather go after someone's low views. Ooh, they look really cool. I'm gonna raid them. And it sounds like they're another plural. Yeah. Yeah! Thank you for the suggestion. I will definitely follow too after I raid. Let me think what I was gonna say. But yeah, just thank you for joining me with coloring art fight stuff. I'm glad that I got most revenges done, and I'll be able to get the other revenge done tonight. I love doing art fight. I think revenge is what we trying to prioritize with art fight because we want to like. If someone took the time to draw art for us, we want to do the same drawing your character. I think a lot of times with art fight though, you kind of have to go and attack people that haven't attacked you. But obviously, because we joined at such a last minute, we don't really have time to do that. But that's okay. I'm happy to draw color, and yeah. Let's see. So we'll probably put our schedule up pretty soon. But let's see. Let me see if I can give you our schedule. We've been thinking about what our schedule is gonna be. So we decided to stream 2 p.m. on Wednesday now. So now we got 3 2 p.m. streams. And we're streaming earlier because DoorDash is a lot better later and we need more monies. So we might go back to having more like evening streams after our debt is paid off, but for now we are trying to stream more earlier in the day. We got like 2 night streams and 3 day streams now. So our next stream is Tuesday at 11 p.m. EST. Oh, that's me. I got me and Chalky both have 2 streams we're gonna be on this week. I just realized. So at 11 p.m. on Tuesday, I was gonna play like Animal Crossing DLC for like an hour. We build like 2 houses for villagers, like with that DLC, the homemaking one. At least 1 house, maybe even 2. And then Nilly's gonna watch Archangels, the final episode that we missed out on. Our DVD is messed up and it can't be ripped, but I think we can watch it, which is weird. I don't get how that works. But yeah, we can watch that final Archangels episode on Tuesday, like around midnight. And then Tarsi, our headmate Tarsi, is going to do a Yin Yang Yo watch party after that. We're gonna watch the first 5 episodes of Yin Yang Yo. We've been wanting to watch Yin Yang Yo for a while on stream. All the episodes are on YouTube, so we're assuming it's good to stream on Twitch. It's safe. And Tarsi is a Carl the Evil Cockroach victim. It's funny how that worked out, like around the time of it was gonna be Cuddle watching Yin Yang Yo. We happened to get a victim of one of the characters. That would be fun to watch that with Tarsi. Then Wednesday night, or no, Wednesday during the day. Wednesday 2 p.m. Let me think. Rotating schedule in my mind. I'm sorry I'm going through this really slow. I'm just trying to think. Okay, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Cuddle is going to stream Heart Chain Kitty, finally. I feel like it's been a while since Cuddle streamed. Yeah, Heart Chain Kitty will be really fun. My music ran out. I gotta start it up again. I'm almost done, I promise. My brain is working now. Then Thursday at 2 p.m. EST, me, Chalky, and Pookie are playing Sonic Heroes. I'm gonna play Team Rose. Chalky's gonna play Team Chaotix, and Pookie's gonna play the final story. And then Saturday at 9 p.m. EST, Magma is playing Five Nights at Freddy's VR. Help wanted. We wanted to do that last night. We got all set up. We even started stream, and then we took like 2 hours to find the PlayStation Move controllers, even though they weren't even that hidden at all. That happens sometimes to you. So yeah, we're gonna finally have Magma play FNAF VR Saturday for real, probably. And then Sunday at 2 p.m. EST, Chalky is playing Cool Cool Tune, which is one of our most favoriteest games and one of the most obscurest of our game interests, I think. It's a wacky rhythm game. Like all the characters are like Halloween type characters. There's a zombie, there's a demon, there's a witch. It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. I'm gonna raid Galaxy System. One. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Oh, my next stream, I should say, might be, like 2 or 3 weeks from now. Oh wait, I forgot. I'm streaming twice this week. What am I saying? I'm streaming Animal Crossing and Sonic Heroes. My bad, my bad. Okay, have a wonderful rest of your day or night. We look forward to seeing you next time. Please take care of yourself. We love you so much. Oh boy, boy.